You will have to be able to perform this operation with a rational function as well. So if you were given So again, start thinking about the domain first. And remember the domain, the way we think about it, we try to find the values of x that cause us to break a rule of math, and we exclude those values from the domain. So we see that we would be out of the domain if our denominator is 0. You cannot divide by 0. So we would be out of the domain if x squared 12x plus 20 is equal to 0. Factor the quadratic. And we get x equals -2 and x equals -10. So these are the values of x that are not in the domain. That means that the domain will be all other values. So from negative infinity to -10, union, -10 to -2, union, -2 to infinity. All right, so now that we have the domain, we can find where the function is 0 and positive and negative. Setting the original equation to 0. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the factored form of the denominator. A fraction is 0 when its numerator is 0, so set the numerator to 0, and we get so we see we have roots when x is 0 and when x is 3. So these are the roots. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put everywhere that both the numerator and denominator is 0 on a number line and use test points. Where the denominator goes to 0 at -2 and -10, although they're not roots, it is possible for a function to change from positive to negative there. They're technically called vertical asymptotes. And if you're unsure of that, if you can draw it, there is some function that will produce it. And here we see it is very possible for a function to change from positive to negative at a vertical asymptote. So you will plot on a number line -10, -2, 0, and 3. And I'm going to use the factored form of our function. Okay. Pick something less than -10. I choose -11. Plug it into the x's. If x is -11, then x is negative. -11 minus 3 is negative. -11 plus 2 is negative. And -11 plus 10 is also negative. So we have 4 negatives. That multiplies and divides to be positive. Pick a number between -10 and -2. I choose -3. If x is -3, then x is negative. -3 minus 3 is negative. -3 plus 2 is negative. But -3 plus 10 is now positive. 3 negatives and a positive will multiply and divide to be negative. All right. Between -2 and 0 lives -1, so plug in -1. If x is -1, then x is negative. -1 minus 3 is also negative. -1 plus 2 is now positive. And -1 plus 10 is also positive. So we have 2 negatives, 2 positives. It's going to produce a positive fraction. All right. Between 0 and 3 lives 1. So plug in 1. If x is 1, then x is positive. 1 minus 3 is negative. 1 plus 2 is positive. And 1 plus 10 is positive. There's 3 positives and a negative. Produce a negative fraction. If x is bigger than 3, say 4, then x is positive. 4 minus 3 is positive. 4 plus 2 is positive, and 4 plus 10 is positive. And our function is positive. Give your answer in interval notation. So f is greater than 0 from negative infinity to negative 10. Union negative 2 to 0. Union 3 to infinity. And f is less than 0 from negative 10 to negative 2. And again, from 0 to 3.